here just so people start hearing, and we can just go ahead and start recording. And as always, it's just edited, so if we need to start and stop, we could. What I am going to try to do, though, is keep each of these shows to like 40 or 45 minutes because there's so much to get through.
Yeah, good luck with that.
Yeah, I know, right? Yeah, so we'll just see if we can just go ahead and start recording. And and as always, it's just sorry, that was the feed coming back through. And then so I'll just see if I can keep an eye on the time as we go and just keep pushing us through. But I know there's so much. Although some of these, it seems like, deserve more talking about than others. So, maybe we'll kind of, like some of the water park stuff, we can fly through a little faster than some of the other things. So,
sure.
Okay, great. So here we go. Let me start rolling. Check 1, 2. Okay, here we go. Get all the stuff ready here. Here we go. Okay. So we may be in the dead of winter, EB, but seriously, when you take a look at the calendar, we're just months away from the start of the 2018 season.
No, yes, absolutely. It's right around the corner. And it is the new year. And in January, one of the shows that we like to do that has in the last couple of years become a double-header episode of CoasterRadio.com is speak with our good friend Arthur Levine about the attractions coming up in the coming year.
That's right. It's tradition. It's tradition, EB. And here, let's welcome to the show right now our good friend Arthur Levine. How's it going, Arthur?
Hey, it's going great. How are you guys doing?
We are doing great. This is tradition. This is how we always start off the year. This is like one of the things where it gets everybody kind of geared up and ready for the big 2018 season. Kind of like it's the dead of winter. It's cold where we are, but it doesn't matter because in just a few months we're going to be out at the parks experiencing the attractions we're going to talk about over the next couple weeks.
Well, it's great that you say that because for me, this is this really is like a turning point. I'm up here in the hinterlands of New England. We've got another winter storm on its way. We're going to get another 4 to 6 inches dumped on us tomorrow. And, when the parks make the announcements in September and other times of the year, it sounds so far off. But when we do the show together, all of a sudden it becomes real, and I feel like maybe park openings are just around the corner, spring's just around the corner, and that's one of the reasons why I love doing this with you guys.
Yeah, it's the new rides of 2018, and we are in 2018. It does feel really close. Arthur, for people who might not know you, tell them who you are and what you do.
Well, I have been writing about the industry for many, many years. I used to be the theme parks expert at About.com. We've gone through some changes there. It's now known as Trip Savvy. I'm still writing about parks for Trip Savvy. I'm also writing on a regular basis about parks for USA Today. And I also have a monthly column in Fun World, which is the trade publication for IAAPA. So it's something that I just absolutely love. I feel very blessed to be able to do something for work that reflects something that I really enjoy, and that's who I am. That's what I do.
Yeah, and I think one of our favorite things is just to have you on the show, especially this time of year, but throughout the year, when you get the chance to experience some different new attractions, or sometimes you're the first guy on the scene at new attractions, it's always great that you come here on the show and kind of share what you learn with us. And it's been a long time. Like, I think for as long as we've been doing this show, I think you've been on Coaster Radio as well. So it's great.
I think I've been listening since you guys first started doing it, and I appreciate the nice things that you say about me, but I've got to say it's one of the things I look forward to every week is getting my weekly Coaster Radio dose. So it's great for me to be here. Hey, before we jump right into to 2018, could we just dwell on 2017 a little bit? I wanted to give you guys major props for your involvement with the Haunted Mind Drop. I mean, how cool was that? I just couldn't believe that you guys were able to pull that off. And EB, it must have been an incredible thrill for you to go there and to to hear your voices in the pre-show. I'm just amazed at that, and I did not get a chance to see that, but it looks like a really cool attraction, and just wanted to tip my hat to you guys for being able to be involved with that.
It was a very, very fun experience. 2017, I think, was one of the more surreal. I mean, it reminded me a lot of the NPH year, where we got invited out to Hollywood to be on How I Met Your Mother, for a park to invite us to come out like that and then treat us so well and then put us in a ride. It was just very weird and wonderful. Absolutely, it was. And you do need to find out how to get to the park on your travels somehow. Maybe do a long stopover on your way somewhere else, or make it a destination when you get a weekend that you can get away.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to doing that. And you guys have really made a great case for the fact that this seems to be a park that's up and coming, and looks like there's going to be some great things happening there. So definitely want to keep that on my radar. One other thing I wanted to bring up, just very briefly, is you guys, I think, have been unfairly crapping on the Jimmy Fallon ride at Universal. And I want to just defend that a bit. I'm not going to say it's one of my favorite all-time attractions. I'm not even going to say it was one of my favorite attractions of 2017. However, it is an e-ticket ride, and I think you guys are a little bit too dismissive of it. And I guess I'll just leave it at that.
What do you think, EB? I
might have to revisit it. I remember when I watched some of the videos of it, and I was like, "What is this garbage?" But that's a first impression, and I do need to go back and look at it again.
It could also be jealousy of Jimmy Fallon himself, because I think EB and I both fancy ourselves as people who would like to host the Tonight Show or do something similar. So I wonder if that's really what's behind it. If a psychologist were to lay us down on the couch and kind of probe our minds, that might be really what's more behind our hatred of the ride. But I'm actually going to head down to Universal in a couple weeks, and I will get on that ride, and I will give it a fair shake. I definitely will.
That sounds good. And just to pass judgment on it, after having watched some YouTube videos, I don't think is entirely fair. I think you really need to get on it.
Yeah.
Give it a try.
But that's what's fun about doing a coaster podcast. I mean, that's what it's all about.
Well, that's what it's going to be about tonight, right? We're going to be judging some rides based on YouTube videos.
That's right.
Exactly.
That's right. And taking a look at the list here, we're first of all, like we've had to do the past couple of years, we're breaking this up into two shows because there's so many things to talk about. But then again, taking a look at 2018, I think there are more rides on this list than we've ever had on any of our preview shows. Don't you guys think?
Well, one thing I will say is that just looking back at 2017 for a moment, in terms of roller coasters, it wasn't a banner year. There were some good ones, but there weren't a whole bunch of great ones. 2018, however, there are some really there are some rides that are really looking incredible, and that I'm really looking forward to. And there's quite a few of them. So in terms of coasters, I think it's going to be a great year. In terms of theme park attractions, I think 2017 we had some really good ones.
Yeah.
And we can debate about Jimmy Fallon, I guess. It's a little light on the attraction side of the equation for 2018, but a real banner year for roller coasters.
Yeah. Well, let's jump right in, because we're going to go through, not in any particular order here. We're just going to kind of jump around the United States and then also jump around Europe and all over the world. Talking about roller coasters, thrill rides, dark rides, water parks, all types of things. Let's start out in California. Out in Southern California at Knott's Berry Farm. A lot of people very, very excited for their new steel roller coaster hang time. A couple stats on it. It's going to be 150 feet tall. They've got a couple of different things. They've got some inversions, an actual spot where the ride hangs on the first drop, a little bit like some of the Busch Gardens drop coasters. It's got some twists, some dives, and it looks really good. 96-degree drop on that first thing there. And actually a very cool illusion where it looks like the track below you disappears. It's that steep of a drop. Looks pretty good.
Yeah, I think it looks great, and Knott's is calling this a dive coaster, and like you just said, Mike, you guys are certainly familiar with the dive coasters at Busch Gardens. We've been hearing about Kiss My Shikra for years now.
Yeah.
And but this one is from a different manufacturer. This is from Gerstlauer, and they seem to love overbanked greater than 90-degree drops, and so instead of going straight down like the other dive coasters do, this one will have a 96-degree drop and will give the effect that the track will just sort of fade away or disappear. And it looks like a great ride. Just the pacing looks great. The hang time element looks great. And it looks especially great at night because they've got this really neat light package on it, which is a little similar to the coaster that was at Adventureland called Monster, which is also from Gerstlauer. It looks like a very similar light package to that. So I think in terms of the ride experience, in terms of the curb appeal on the boardwalk, I think it's this ride will have it all.
I'm glad you mentioned that lighting package. I think that's going to be something that's going to be really cool to look at. And Gerstlauer, that's a name that we're going to hear a lot on this list as we continue through it, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yes.
I love Agreed. A good ride or attraction that's as much fun to ride as it is to watch. And I think when you look at La Ronde in Montreal, they're going to debut a new carnival area. It's kind of a family zone. Where they're going to have a bunch of flat rides, it looks like. 3 new rides there. They're going to have a carousel, a Ferris wheel, and what they call a high-flying merry-go-round. But it's going to be French-themed. It looks fun.
Well, I tried to decode what these rides actually are. One of them is called Tourbillon. You said it was a carousel, which is what the park is calling it. From the looks of it, though, it actually looks like a tilt-a-whirl.
Oh, okay.
And the Ferris wheel is a Ferris wheel, the Petite Roue. And then there's Tour de Fou, which they're saying is a high-flying merry-go-round, but from what I could tell, it looked like a scrambler.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah, so kind of a fun, like the one thing when we talk about parks and new additions, we always kind of tend to, kind of push down any flat rides, or regular type rides. But those are important parts of any theme park to have those type of rides. So I'm glad that La Ronde is getting those. That's great.
Yeah, and we'll see exactly how much they follow through with the theming of it. Are they just going to plunk these things down and say it's the Carnival, or is it going to be actually very well themed? It's Six Flags, after all.
But I completely agree with you, Mike. I think flat rides are an important part of the mix at a park, and so parks like La Ronde need rides like this.
Yeah. Six Flags America, which is the closest park to the Coaster Radio DC studios, the big thing at this park that I've always noticed is that the water park is way more popular than the dry park. On any day that you go there in the summer, you're going to find the water park jammed. But the dry park, has lines that are okay. And if you're a big roller coaster fan, that's good for you. But this year, they're adding a new centerpiece to Hurricane Harbor at Six Flags America. It's called Wahoo River. And it's got 7 water action zones. And they say it's going to have water arches, geysers, surging waves, waterfalls, and tipping buckets. So a good addition. Yeah, kind of interesting.
Waves in their action river. That sounds like fun.
Yeah, I like that. So,
It's been many years since I've been to Six Flags America, but from what I recall, I do remember the water park being very busy. I also remember it being relatively small. So anything that's going to increase capacity there, which a lazy river or an adventure river definitely does, is a good thing for the park.
Yeah. E.B., you mentioned that Gerstlauer, we're going to hear a lot from them on this lake or in this list. Darien Lake is unveiling Tantrum, one of their Eurofighters.
Yeah. Go ahead, Arthur.
I'm sorry. I was going to say this is a relatively late announcement. Everybody all the parks sort of had their say about what will be coming this year, and then Darien Lake kind of out of nowhere said, "Hey, by the way, we've got one coming too." It is Tantrum. It is from Gerstlauer, and this is a relatively big coaster, both for Darien Lake and in terms of the Eurofighters that Gerstlauer has. This will be 100 feet tall. It's going to be 52 miles an hour, and of course, it'll have that 95. It'll have a 95 degree greater than straight down drop.
Yeah, EB, you went to Darien Lake this past year, right? Or last year, like pretty recently, right?
Yeah, we went to Darien Lake. I like Darien Lake just fine.
Yeah. Do you think this will be a good addition to that park? Or is this something they need?
Yeah, and I think this is going to be a thing with these Gerstlauers. Is they kind of are reminding me of the Larson Loopers, and we have some Larson Loops on this list tonight. How it's something that we said every park should have one. Why not? And this is a steel roller coaster that I feel like all the parks are now saying, hey, we need to add this too. It's like having a Wild Mouse. You got to have one.
Yeah, yeah.
And the great thing about it is they're fairly compact. They don't take up a lot of real estate, so a park doesn't have to work too hard to find the space for one of these rides.
Well, and a lot of them aren't. A lot of the parks aren't trying to make them very different either. They're like, oh yeah, we'll just take that one there on the shelf, put it in.
Right,
which is fine.
I was going to say I really like Darien Lake as well. It's a unique park in that it has a hotel, it has a huge campground, it has a really nice performing arts center, and it has, I think, 2 sit-down restaurants. So for a regional park, it's really kind of unique, and it's in a pretty picturesque part of New York as well.
Yeah, great. At Universal Studios Hollywood, they are going to unveil Kung Fu Panda in the DreamWorks Theater. Arthur, what do you know about this one? This is one that's new to me. I hadn't heard about this one, so kind of excited to hear more.
Well, this is going to be in what was formerly the Shrek Theater, and when it became apparent that Universal was going to be closing down Shrek, the scuttlebutt was that probably they were going to take over the area and incorporate it into the Wizarding World, because it's literally right next to it. I mean, it's like within inches of the Wizarding World. But in fact, what they're doing is they're replacing it with the DreamWorks Theater, which it sounds like it's going to be that. I think they're going to have at one point or at some point down the road a repertoire of films based on DreamWorks. They're going to have a repertoire of attractions based on DreamWorks films. DreamWorks was recently acquired by Comcast, so this kind of makes sense from a synergy point of view. And from what I understand, unlike Shrek, which was a 4D film, had some moving seats. This one, I think, is going to involve projection mapping effects as well. So this could be a little bit of a sleeper attraction. I'm going to keep my eye on this one.
Yeah, especially with the projection mapping. That's always fun. And that's always very impressive in person when you see that. So that's very cool. Very cool. We are going to try this year on the big list of 2018 attractions to talk about you guys in Europe. In England and Germany and all over the place, and also Sweden at Furuvik. In Furuvik, Sweden, they're debuting a new dark ride called XX or Double X. It sounds like a very good dark ride, guys. One where the storyline is you collecting points by scaring ghosts and other spooky creatures. So I like this. And I like that there's a dark ride that isn't necessarily about an intellectual property that we all know. It's a kind of a original storyline. Pretty cool. It's
a ride. Do I ride in a vehicle and I collect points by shooting, or how does this work? Do you know anything about it?
That's what it sounds like. I'm learning a little bit more about it as we go here and as they're releasing.
I tried to go to the website and I couldn't get it to translate. I would translate it and it would take you to one page where it said, "We can't translate it, but welcome to our park."
Well, I did the best I could to translate some information. It looks like this is from Sally. It was formerly Ghost Castle, and so I think they're using the same ride vehicles. Yes, it is a dark ride, a ride that you're going to ride through, and they're turning it into this interactive shoot 'em up ride. I really don't know anything about this park. I've never been to the park or to Sweden for that matter, but it looks like a really nice park and zoo. Also has a concert venue like Darien Lake and has a water park. So looks like a good addition to the park.
Yeah. Up near you, Arthur, at Six Flags New England, they are going to get a ride that actually is very similar to what Six Flags Discovery Kingdom is going to get. They're calling their ride Harley Quinn Spinsanity. It's basically a giant swing ride that is actually going to be pretty thrilling when you talk about it going 70 miles an hour and spinning riders 147 feet in the air. I mean, I know that we, like, in the theme park community, always kind of get down on clones and stuff, but this looks like a pretty scary and fun ride.
I actually like pendulum rides. Talk about airtime. I mean, you get some serious airtime on rides like this. And with a ride that's going to go 70 miles an hour and almost 150 feet in the air, I think we're going to have some real serious airtime. And like you said, it's slightly smaller than the record-breaking one that's coming to Six Flags Magic Mountain. Curiously, we've talked about this before. Six Flags has this bizarre practice of naming. Their naming convention is very odd, where they will take the same name and give it to two entirely different rides, and they've done that again this year. We're going to hear the name Harley Quinn Spinsanity later on, and we can talk about it then, I guess. But it's a completely different ride at another park.
Yeah, just like Lasso of Truth, which is the other one that's Discovery Kingdom has. And I was remembering Delirium at Kings Island is the one that I've been on of these sorts of rides. I think it's just a little bit smaller, but they're wonderful. What a great thing.
They're really fun. The one at Cedar Point is so fun. I just love that one. I mean, that's worth a wait, to get on that. So I like that these rides are, it's great. Even though we've seen them before, I think every park needs something like this just to kind of round out their flat ride collection. So I like that. Getting back into some roller coasters here, Six Flags Discovery Kingdom up in Northern California is debuting the Harley Quinn Crazy Coaster. So, there we go, another Harley Quinn ride. This looks pretty good as well. It's 2 trains. It's got 32 riders face to face as they kind of speed past each other in a dueling motion. So it's one of the first from Skyline, right? The Skywarp attraction.
This is the Skywarp. Yes, this is the one that was debated. Is it a roller coaster or not? And I think they're actually counting it as a roller coaster on Roller Coaster Database, which is quite controversial. But yeah, no, this looks like a lot of fun. This is basically a Larson Looper stretched out and made into an 8 or an infinity sign.
Yeah, it looks fun.
Yeah, when they first made the announcement about this, I had the exact same reaction as UEB. I thought this looks like a Larson Loop. And I wasn't really all that excited about it. But then I went to IAAPA and I saw the Skyline booth, and I met with Jeff Pike from Skyline and saw the model that they had there. And now I'm very excited about it. I think that the ride has a lot of potential. And interestingly, they had some other concepts that used sort of similar. They had a similar concept, but different configurations of the ride, where it kind of goes horizontally, and so I think that this company is sort of up and coming with this compact roller coaster concept that they have. I wanted to mention one other thing that you said. I had kind of a funny experience. I was interviewing Jeff and asking him all these questions about the Harley Quinn Crazy Coaster. And then I was kind of wrapping up, and I said, I have kind of this existential question for you. Is this really a roller coaster, which we were just talking about? And it was almost like a scene out of a movie. The moment that I said that, in walks Dwayne Martin from Roller Coaster Database. He just happened to be in the area, and he heard me ask that question. And Jeff turned to Dwayne and said, "Well, what do you think, Dwayne?" And he said, "I've just decided that it is in fact a roller coaster." And it was almost like I felt like it was in a Woody Allen movie or something. It just was. The timing couldn't have been any better. And the reason why he's considering it a roller coaster is because it has this tire propelled launch mechanism that kind of gets the coaster going, and then they propel the train up, and then they coast back down. So it is in fact a coaster, unlike a Larson Loop, which just kind of is propelled round and round.
Yeah.
So it is apparently a roller coaster, and that's straight from the authority.
A very, very short amount of coasting, where it literally isn't touching any of those drive tires. But so I guess that's all it takes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I wanted to correct one thing though. The coaster boy in me wanted to let you know that it's not 2 trains. It's actually one long train.
Oh, okay.
With 2 sets of seats. That are separated so that they can kind of duel and
it kind of looks like 2 trains, but they're actually connected with basically empty cars,
right?
Just holding it together.
Yeah.
Yes, that's it.
It's another one of those that's as much fun to look at as it is to ride, I think, and that's important at a theme park, where not everybody is going to ride, but everybody can.
The horizontal skyline roller coaster you were mentioning there, Arthur, that was down there at IAPA. That one looks fun too. I mean, that looks like more of a kiddie ride, but it looks like a lot of fun. And the way that they had it set up where you could put like flat rides in the middle of what the figure eight would be, and you would just kind of woo, 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 back and forth around and around.
Yeah, these guys have a lot of unique ideas, and as I said, I think we're going to be seeing some neat things coming out of that company over the next few years.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So one of the fun things that we saw at IAPA, they always, unveil the new roller coaster trains that are there. And I think one of the most interesting ones and one of the cutest ones was the one that's going to be at Sesame Place up in Pennsylvania for Oscar's Wacky Taxi Ride. This looks fun, guys. I really like this because it's going to be kind of a wood-steel hybrid, but a family roller coaster. And it's going to have like kind of a taxi-themed theme going on there with Oscar the Grouch. I like this ride.
I don't think coaster fans are going to be rushing to Sesame Place necessarily. However, I wouldn't necessarily dismiss this ride either. This is from the Gravity Group. It's going to have a Timberliner train, and I think I've talked about this before on Coaster Radio with you guys. One of my favorite roller coasters and one of the most underrated coasters in the world is Wooden Warrior out at Quasi in Connecticut. And that is also a Gravity Group ride from Gravity Group and also has Timberliner train. And that one is surprisingly potent, even though it only goes up 36 feet and reaches 35 miles an hour. This ride is going to have a 40-foot drop, which will make it that much taller and faster than Wooden Warrior. So this could be another sleeper ride.
Yeah. All the Gravity Group stuff is so good. So and when you talk about Wooden Warrior, there are people who have been specifically going up to Quasi just for that. So I wonder if that will happen. If people will start, making Sesame Place part of their Pennsylvania
just
theme park
stopping in to ride the roller coaster.
Yeah,
sure.
Yeah.
I mean, this is it's a big deal for Sesame Place too, because it's the biggest investment that they've made in the entire park history building this roller coaster. And I like it. The height requirement on this, 40 inches. 40 inches, you can ride a Gravity Group roller coaster.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
So good.
Have either of you guys been to Sesame Place? I haven't, and it's on my bucket list. I definitely want to get there. It's pretty close to you, Mike. I'm just wondering if you've ever been there.
Yeah,
I have not.
I have not been there, but every year I say I'm going to go and bring my nieces and nephews, and eventually when I have kids of my own, like I always say, like, okay, that's where I'm going to take them one day. But I've never been, just because I think of whenever heading to Pennsylvania, it's always to the other big parks, But I think maybe now is the time.
2018 Coaster Radio meetup.
Yeah,
you heard it here.
There we go. Up next is the first of the Larson Giant Loops that we'll talk about at Valley Fair. They are going to open Delirious this year, and it's a 70-foot Larson Loop.
Don't know what to say about it.
Yeah.
It's a Larson Loop.
There you
It's
go.
70 feet. Looks like it's going to be okay. Nothing to get too excited about. But for the people in the area of Valley Fair, I think they're going to love the ride. Probably.
Yeah.
Maybe they were having a sale at Larson. It's like, we sold a bunch of these, but I don't know if it's cooling down. Oh, we'll take one.
I'll never forget, there was this guy in my office who went to a park that had a Larson Loop, and he talked about it like it was the greatest ride ever. And it made me realize that there are people who love those. I mean, just to see that happening, or sometimes people see it at a fair and they love it.
My son Dean, it was his favorite ride at Six Flags St. Louis. I mean, he absolutely loved it, and he rode it again and again and again, and he just thought it was the coolest thing that it's a roller coaster that's just a loop.
Yeah, interesting, right? Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Hey guys, can I just jump in real quick on the Harley Quinn Crazy Coaster that we were just talking about?
Yeah.
I had made a note and I forgot to mention this. I'm not sure people are aware of this, but that actually is a single rail coaster, and the single rail is manufactured by RMC.
Oh,
so there's a little bit of interesting trivia for you.
There we go. See, they're all over the place. They pop up everywhere.
They are.
Yeah.
Huh.
And actually, that's good timing to talk about them, because next up on our list is Railblazer out at California's Great America. It's funny, just because of the way the PR stuff went, they're the second single rail roller coaster, because we'll talk about them later. But Six Flags Fiesta Texas kind of jumped the gun and announced before them being the first single rail roller coaster. So I always think that's funny. It's basically the exact same ride, just kind of mirror image. But at first I wasn't excited about these type of rides, but the more I'm looking at them, the more I'm kind of really excited to get one because it's got a 90.
They look nice.
Yeah.
And, when you see the photographs, they look so weird and just so cool.
Yeah. So a couple of stats here: a 90-degree drop, 3 inversions. Got a lot of different rotations on the ride and stuff, and guests get to straddle the single track as they go through, which is very. I mean, we haven't had that before. That's really neat.
I'm really, really looking forward to this, and I was actually the one who broke the story in USA Today about the Wonder Woman coaster, the other single rail iBox coaster.
Yeah.
But I was trying desperately to get out to RMC's headquarters, and I was in touch with Fred Grubb, and I was all set to ride the test track that they had set up in their yard. It just didn't work out. But I've got to say, I'm really looking forward to giving one of these rides, to getting on one of these rides this year. The thing about the iBox rides to date, they've all been incredibly smooth and just, I just can't say enough great things about RMC's coasters. And what they're saying about this is because it has a single rail, they don't have to worry about trying to balance the left and right rail in terms of in terms of making sure that they're in equilibrium. And so they're saying that this should be even smoother. That there's virtually nothing to get out of balance or out of whack. There's only the single rail. So in terms of smoothness, it's supposed to be just extraordinary, and I can't wait to actually put that to the test. They're also saying that because of the single rail, they're going to be able to have very smooth and abrupt transitions between elements. So this should be an entirely new coaster experience, and one that I'm really looking forward to riding.
Arthur, if these are successful, do you think we're going to get an announcement for the T-Rex, the big version of this?
Absolutely. And it's funny, the Harley Quinn coaster that I was talking about, that single rail, that is wider than these Raptor ones I think it's 15 inches wide. It's very, very narrow. So the T-Rex is going to be wider, and I think it'll be closer to what they're using for that Harley Quinn coaster.
Yeah.
Of course, one of the problems with the single rail coaster, and you guys have talked about it, is capacity. We're only talking about 8 seats per train. They are going to have 3 trains, but I think the lines are going to be real long for these rides.
Yeah. I laughed when a listener wrote in and said maybe these rides will be upcharge attractions. That laughed at, that you'd actually have to pay to get on it. But I don't know. We'll see. It's going to be interesting to see, especially after the newness wears off, a couple months in, how long those lines are during the hot summer months. Should be interesting. Yeah. Another ride here, talk about controversy and things like that. We've had a lot of it here on the show as people talk about Time Traveler at Silver Dollar City. They're billing it as the world's fastest, steepest, and tallest spinning roller coaster. But I think the question people want to know is how much spinning is there going to be on this thing?
Well, they have the ability to adjust the rate of rotation on these rides. And at IAPR, I actually saw the ride vehicle, which looks stunning. It's got this fabulous steampunk theme, and they're really large, imposing ride vehicles. I think, again, this is going to be one of those rides that'll be as much fun to watch as it is to ride.
Yeah.
And I actually got to go up close and look, and you can see that there's this calibration device underneath the on the chassis where they can literally dial up or dial down the amount of spinning that the vehicle will have. So it's not a free spin ride. They're going to be able to control it.
Yeah.
And I think they may quickly. My guess is they're probably going to dial it up a bit, and then if people start getting sick, they'll dial it down immediately, and that's where it will probably stay. But there's so many things that I really like about this ride. You mentioned that it'll be the tallest. It's going to be 100 feet, but it's going to drop immediately out of the station. This is one of those rides that the lift hill comes at the end. So people are just going to, passengers are just going to drop 100 feet immediately out of the station. It's going to be the steepest spinning coaster. It's going to be 90 degrees. And it struck me how many roller coasters this year are 90 degrees or greater for their drops. That seems to be sort of the mantra now, that all roller coasters have these really steep drops. In addition to all that, it's going to have a couple of magnetic launches as well mid-ride. And so it's got a lot of great features for it, a really nice story. I think there's going to be a lot of theming in the queue about this inventor from the 19th century inventor that invented this time machine, and that you then get to ride. So I'm really looking forward to this. I've never been to Silver Dollar City, but this is going to get me to get out there this year. One of the rides I'm looking forward to actually getting on this year.
Yeah, us too. Actually, that's where we're planning to have one of our meetups this year, and I think Time Traveler is one of the reasons. Especially, I love the trains that they unveiled at IAAPA. They look really cool and actually have some lighting on them and stuff. I think it's neat.
Yeah, and maybe we can finally meet in person. Maybe
That's right.
we can. Maybe the timing will work out that I'll get to be out there at the same time that you guys are doing the.
That would be great.
Yeah, I'm looking in the chat room right now. People are asking for that. They're saying Arthur Levine needs to come out to the Coaster Radio meetup. So maybe that does happen. Maybe
it'll be Silver Dollar City.
Yeah, there we go. One last one before we take a break here. Six Flags Great America out in Illinois. Actually, they're putting in the world's largest loop roller coaster. Or largest loop coaster, they call it there. It's their 16th.
They're calling it their 16th coaster, Mike.
Yeah, there we go. 100-foot tall, 32 face-to-face seats. So going through several 360-degree revolutions. So they're calling it a roller coaster. What do you guys think?
Well, they can call it a roller coaster. Yeah. You and I know that it's not a roller coaster.
Yeah, there you go.
But at 100 feet tall, you gotta pay attention to it, I guess. And apparently the name is to be announced. It's they're just calling it the world's largest loop coaster at this point, but it will actually have a name that I think is going to come out any day now. That's what I'm hearing from Six Flags.
There we go.
100 feet though, that's a lot to go through those loops that many times. I mean, that sounds. I would ride that. That sounds really exciting.
Yeah, that company's having a good quarter. They're selling a lot of those. That's good. Well, look, let's take a break. We're halfway through this week's show, but we've got a lot more to come. We're going to talk about Adventureland, Wallaby, The Great Escape, Six Flags Great Adventure, and a whole lot more. I mean, we're only in the first show. We've got 2 of these because there's so many great attractions coming up in 2018. So I'm Mike. That is EB. We're here with Arthur Levine, and we will be right back. All right. Do you guys need a break or anything? Are you ready to plow right through?
Let's keep going.
I think I'm good.
Okay, great.
I'm good.
All right, here we go. EB, I'll use an old break. I'll use an old one that we have
that's great.
So we can keep going. Welcome back, everybody, to the Original Theme Park Podcast. You are listening to CoasterRadio.com. My name is Mike. That is EB. We're also here with Arthur Levine, and we are having a great time talking about 2018 attractions. It's fantastic this time of year because it kind of gets you excited, you know? Like, imagine, no matter where you are in the country, odds are there is something coming up that's brand new at a park near you. I like it.
Yeah, and this is great. We're going through the big parks. We're going through the small parks. We're going through the European parks. What is this Adventureland in Altoona?
Yeah,
Bernie's Barnyard is next on our list.
Yeah, we're talking about all big parks, small parks, everything.
I looked up Adventureland in Altoona, and it looks like the owner's kid in elementary school drew the website.
He might have. Well, they have to spend some money on the rides themselves, I guess, and not on the website. But it's fun.
What's Adventureland getting in 2018?
Yeah, when we're talking about adding things to round out your park, they've actually got a new kiddie area, which is going to have a playground, arcade games, all types of stuff. So Adventureland is even expanding as well.
I don't have much to say about this, guys.
Yeah.
I have not been there, but apparently they're getting 2 new rides. Looks like a cute little park, and more power to them.
Yeah, there we go.
Great.
There you go. Let's go across the pond to Belgium, in Wallaby in Belgium. They've got a new family-friendly roller coaster coming their way, so that's going to be a lot of fun. And at their adjacent water park, is it Aqualaby? I think that's what it's called. They've got they've got a big aquatic playground for children. And I think that family-friendly roller coaster is by Gerstlauer, right?
Another Gerstlauer.
Yeah.
It is another Gerstlauer. This one's going to be a single car configuration. They also have a new kiddie coaster coming too, so they're really expanding for 2018.
Yeah. Yeah, and you know what? As strange as this may sound, a trip to Wallaby, Belgium might be in my future. That could be coming. There could be a trip report from Belgium at some point. So
That definitely sounds strange.
Yeah, I know, right? That's going to be weird. So I might be on that family-friendly roller coaster and can tell you about it. So we'll have to see about that. Up at the Great Escape and Splashwater Kingdom up in Lake George, New York, they are introducing Pandemonium. This is going to be a ride that takes 24 riders at a time. It's going to have spins and tilts at all different types of angles. But what's really cool is they've got another one of these great lighting packages that's going to have a really cool After Dark experience.
Yeah, this looks pretty cool. It's a chance freestyle, so a good spin and puke.
There you go.
That's fine. Great. We talked about it earlier. A good flat ride's a good flat ride.
Yeah, I like
Everybody you got to have the whirl and hurls, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I kind of get bummed out when I go to a park and don't find one of those. You know, because you want to kind of like change up your day. You don't want to ride roller coasters nonstop. A little ride like this is a nice break in the day.
There has to be something for teenagers to dare each other to ride, right?
Yeah, there we go. Let's keep going with some Gerstlauers here at Oaks Amusement Park in Portland. They got a 72-foot Gerstlauer. That's going to have a vertical lift, heartline rolls, 97-degree loop, and a top speed of 45 miles an hour. And eerily enough, I always worry about it when parks do this. They're having the public help name the ride through a name the roller coaster.
Coaster face.
Yeah, a little contest there. I always worry about it. And then I always wonder if like people got together and made something that just would not work, would they go ahead and actually give the public what they wanted? Or do they have like a backup plan in place? I always wonder.
Hopefully they have some kind of backup plan in place because those things can go horribly wrong. You said it was a 97-degree loop. I think it's actually a 97-degree drop. This is
another drop.
This is very similar to Untamed at Canopy Lake, which I know you've been to, EB.
That's a great ride.
It's almost identical to that. So very compact Eurofighter. It should be a nice addition to this small park in Portland.
Yep.
Well, and how great for the people of Oregon who don't have a lot I coasters in their lives already to get this. This is cool.
That's right.
That's great.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think they've got a couple. When I was out in Oregon, there were just very few. I think some of them at that kind of fairy tale land that they had there. But yeah, the forest park that they had there. So interesting. At Six Flags St. Louis, they're going to open the Typhoon Twister in their Hurricane Harbor Water Park. It's a hybrid zero-gravity water slide and wave wall, which is interesting.
That mean?
I was trying to figure out what that was, but it sends 4 people barreling down an enclosed 54-foot drop in a clover-leafed raft. That's what it is.
A lot of the water park manufacturers have been combining elements from different rides, and so this hybrid ride is going to take essentially a bowl ride. You know what the toilet bowl rides are, and then it'll spit you out of the bowl, and you kind of go up a half pipe wall. So it's a combination of a bowl ride and a half pipe ride.
I like this. I like this a lot. When I looked at it and I actually watched the video of it, it was like, oh, I get it. That's what it is. And this makes perfect sense because what's the worst thing about some of these water slides? You climb all the way up the stairs and then you get on the thing and it does one thing like the toilet bowl and then you're done. So why not make it a bit longer? Put these things together. Give me a few experiences on the way down. This is cool. Yeah. This is what water slides should be doing more. I feel like.
There we go.
I'm with you. I'm with you. Sounds good.
Yeah. Worlds of Fun in Kansas City is unveiling one of my favorite types of drop rides. There used to be one at Busch Gardens Williamsburg, and I was bummed out when they took it out. It's a Mack Sea Storm ride. They're calling it Nordic Chaser, and it's a family ride. Basically, you get in these little mini ships that rotate around a circuit, but they go up and down like you're kind of rising and falling along the ocean waves. I like these rides.
This is a cute little ride. I've seen pictures of these, and they actually, hopefully they'll actually be getting them with little sails on the boats and the whole thing. Yeah, it's fine. It's cute.
Yeah,
I don't know anything about this one. Sounds like you guys know a little more than I do, but sounds cute.
It's really fun, and it's one of those rides that actually, like, it's the kind where you ride it, and it doesn't look like anything from when you are standing on the midway and watching it, but when you board and you're going up and down over the waves, you just laugh the whole time. It's a great ride. So I wish more parks had these. I was so bummed out when Busch Gardens removed theirs. I think they removed theirs to put in Apollo's Chariot. I think that's where.
Oh, what was the name of the one at Busch Gardens?
Oh, it was something like the High Seas.
Viking.
Yeah, or something. It was in Italy, but it had an Italian name, but something like the High Seas or something like that. But it was so great, so great.
Cool.
In Germany at Liseberg, they are opening Valkyra. I hope I'm saying that right. It's a dive coaster. It's going to have a 50-meter drop. We've got to say that because that's the way they do it. And they do it in meters, EB, in Europe. So it looks really cool, but they're going to have an underground tunnel, which I love on the drop rides where it goes into an underground tunnel. That's the best kind.
Well, for us American idiots, that's 164 feet. So it's going to be smaller than SheiKra and a little slower at 65 miles an hour. But it's from B&M, very similar to the Busch Gardens dive coasters. Looks like a great ride.
Yeah.
Yeah. And this is another one of the websites I went to and tried to figure out and translate. And this ride is great. They have a really great rendering where you can do the POV. It looks like they're really pushing the theme with it. They've got like spooky bats and stuff flying around this thing. It says on here, Loki's misdeeds have provoked the wrath of the gods, who are now plotting to defeat the evil giant once and for all. Prepare for battle under the watchful eye of the Valkyrie. The moment of reckoning is here.
There we go.
Europe's longest dive coaster. That's what they're calling it.
Yeah. Nice. There was a couple, like 6 months ago, maybe a year ago, I was looking on Facebook, and one of our theme park friends posted a video of a ride that looked fake. It looked like it could not be real. It was this weird gondola ride that was spinning on 3 axes. And I thought it was fake. I thought it was like something that somebody built in a computer or something, but it was real. And one of them is coming to Six Flags Great Adventure. It's called Cyborg Cyberspin. And I don't really know how to describe what this is, but it's like 24 riders. They sit with their feet dangling, but they twist and turn on these 3 axes, and it goes up to 7 stories in the air or something like that. It's a wild looking ride.
This thing looks great. I love it.
It's kind of like a gyroscope.
Yeah.
Like you said, Mike, it's got 3 different axes, so you can sort of go in the X plane, the Y plane, and the Z plane all at the same time, and passengers are just going to be turned topsy turvy. They won't know which end is up, and I think this looks like a really cool ride, and it's 70 feet tall, so this is a serious flat ride.
Yeah.
It reminds me of a Huss top spin, which is an awesome, really fun ride. And but to be able to spin in the other directions too, left and right and forward and back, it's going to be really weird. It's going to be a cool experience. I'm curious to see how different this ride is if you sit in the middle versus sit on the end. Because if it is like a gyroscope, those people in the middle are just going to be like rotating, spinning in place.
That's a great point. Yeah.
Yeah, and the forces on the edge would be a lot too. So yeah, it'd be interesting to see. But maybe that's what's cool about it is as you kind of move around in seats, you get kind of a different experience each time. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of cool. Some of the Legolands are taking their Project X roller coasters and turning them into virtual reality rides. So what they're doing, a Legoland in Florida is taking the Great Lego Race and basically giving everybody virtual reality helmets. And turning it into a kind of a fun ride. And I like this because they're doing it on a ride where it makes sense. Sometimes we're getting some of these virtual reality experiences on roller coasters that are perfectly fine as they are. But I really like that they're using it on the old Project X. I think it could be pretty cool.
Yeah, this is a Wild Mouse coaster. And as you might expect, since it's at Legoland, not a very intense Wild Mouse. It's pretty low profile. I could spend an entire show talking about virtual reality and virtual reality coasters, and I know we don't really have time to get too far into that. I will say that I spoke with Nick Varney, who is the CEO of Merlin, which owns Legoland, and he was pretty candid, saying that the industry is still sort of struggling with what to do with VR, and it's not for lack of trying. I mean, IAAPA was just rampant with vendors pitching different VR concepts.
Yeah.
The VR coaster, I think, is still sort of a gimmicky thing, and Nick was very candid about the problem with capacity. It takes so long to load and unload these that you literally cut your capacity in half, and parks really can't afford to do that. Yet they're still trying to do that because there's competition and they're impelled to do it, and so the industry really is trying to figure out what to do with this. And again, I could talk about some of my experiences, but that would take an entire show. So let's just leave it at that. I'm not totally sold on the idea of VR in its present form at the theme park or the amusement park. I think augmented reality holds a lot of promise, but VR not so much.
Yeah. Now, on next week's show, we're going to talk about the virtual reality ride that Busch Gardens Williamsburg is prepping. And I'm curious if that's going to be any different, because that's going to be virtual reality on a motion simulator, which I don't think we've seen yet. So I'm curious what that's going to be like. And they're claiming that they've kind of solved the problem of how to get a lot of people through with virtual reality. So I'm curious to learn a little bit more about that. We'll talk about that next week. And actually, I think on the show at a certain point, some of the creative team from Busch Gardens is going to come on and talk to us a little bit about that. So,
good.
Oh, great.
That should be interesting. We'll see how it goes. Waldemere Park and Waterworld up in Erie, Pennsylvania. They've got two family-friendly rides coming up. First, they've got the balloon race in Kittyland.
Okay.
So that's nice. Again, like something that the kids are going to like. But they've also got a double tube water slide called Cannonball, which is a good name, I think.
This is our toilet bowl slide. Right?
Yeah, there we go. So that's something that they've got there. And this is what I like about this show, is that you've got some parks that, of course, are doing big, gigantic rides. But then again, you're finding that some parks are just putting in what they need. And I think that's what's great, a kiddie ride and something to add on to their water park. Pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
And then we've got one last one. So we start with the big one here at the top of the show, and then we end with the big one. A lot of people excited for the new RMC retrofit at Six Flags Over Georgia of Twisted Cyclone. People excited about this, I think, because they're taking a ride that I once rode, and it beat me up. And I remember saying I will never do it again. But now the ride has a new life. It's kind of rising from the ashes there, thanks to RMC.
I have not been on an RMC ride, an RMC hybrid remake of a wooden coaster that I haven't loved, and I fully expect that Twisted Cyclone won't stop that trend. They are just masters at what they do, and it's so ironic because by taking these old, past their prime, beat up wooden coasters, they're not starting from nothing and building an incredibly smooth and wonderful ride. They're starting with a terrible ride and making it, which makes it all the sweeter when people get to go on it and in its reborn form. And for folks in the Georgia area who have not been on an RMC hybrid wooden steel coaster, they're in for a real treat. And the Twisted Cyclone ride looks very similar to me to Wicked Cyclone, which we have at Six Flags New England, which was another old, past its prime wooden coaster that got an RMC makeover and is wonderful now. So the folks at Six Flags Over Georgia, as I said, are in for a real treat.
Yeah, and I think 2018 is the year of really cool roller coaster trains, because just the look of this kind of sports car theme that they're putting on Twisted Cyclone and a lot of others that we'll talk about. Yeah, right? Looks really good. So
it's not just a sports car. It's a 1960s themed sports car. I saw it at IAAPA. It looks very, very cool.
Oh, yeah. So good stuff, right? So we're only halfway through of our gigantic list of new rides coming up in 2018. But man, there's a lot to get excited about, isn't there, guys?
There definitely
Absolutely.
is. Yeah, can't wait to keep this going next week.
Yeah, so next week we've got more, like we're exactly halfway through. So next week we're going to talk about stuff coming to Disney, stuff coming to King's Dominion, Tivoli Gardens, Hershey Park, Universal Studios, SeaWorld, Carowinds, and of course we're going to talk about Cedar Point. We've got to talk about Steel Vengeance. I think that's going to be worthy of some discussion about that. Talk about RMCs and what they're doing. That's going to be a discussion for next week. So Arthur, thank you so much for being here. It's so great to have you, but we're excited to have you back next week to keep this party going.
Hey, it's my pleasure. I'm looking forward to next week, and I'm definitely looking forward to talking about Steel Vengeance.
Yes, going to be so good. So we want to thank Arthur, but also we want to thank all of you guys out there, everybody who keeps the show going through all the different ways that you can, especially those people who help us out on Patreon.
That's right. Patreon is the subscription service where you can pay the artists for what they do, what you think they ought to be paid. It's you're a patron of the podcast. If you go to patreon.com/Coaster Radio, find out all about it over there and find out all about the perks and things like that and all of the benefits of becoming a patron of Coaster Radio. We want to thank everybody, especially those at the $20 pledge level. That's Rick Burnley, our friends at Coasters Galore on YouTube, Stephen Coriel, Greg Delaney, Tony DePhillips, Neil Patrick Harris, Marshall the Big EZ Hider, Brian Cosson, Matt from Yorkshire, Dan the T-shirt guy Miller, Chris Rankin, David Sakala, Kevin Wilson, and Tim Wilson.
Yes, and don't forget about our honorary executive producers, Todd Hout, Slater, and Brian Wackler.
Yay.
Yeah, so thank you guys again. We will be back next week with Arthur, and we're going to be going through more reasons to get excited for 2018. It helps the winter months go by so much easier, doesn't it? We'll see you guys next week. All right, great job, guys. That was good. That was actually right around 55 minutes, but we did a little at the top, so that was good.
Great.
Right where we needed to be.
Yeah,
so.
it seems like we're rolling through them pretty well.
Yeah. So hang on one second. Let me save this here. Does anybody need a little break? Or is everybody good?
I'm good.
Okay. All right, let me just save this super quick, and then we'll jump right in.
I added Kentucky Kingdom and Holiday World, Mike.
Oh, good. Yep, I did forget about that. You're right. Okay, here we go. Okay, here we go, everybody.
I didn't prepare anything for Kentucky Kingdom or Holiday World, so.
No, that's all right. Yeah, Kentucky Kingdom is they're taking out their Enterprise, right? And they're getting a Zamperla Endeavor, is what it's called.
Okay.
And then Holiday World's just doing some kiddie slides in their water park.
That's right. Yep, I do remember that.
Okay, I am rolling. Here we go. Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Original Theme Park Podcast. You are listening to CoasterRadio.com. My name is Mike Collins. I am here with EB, and we are also joined again for the second week in a row with Arthur Levine. How's it going, Arthur?
It's going great. How you doing, Mike?
Doing great. Thank you so much for coming back for week 2 as we take a look ahead into the future of what 2018 holds at the theme park. And as we saw last week, we did a whole hour last week about shows, only got halfway through our list because there are a lot of really great attractions coming up in 2018.
There are a ton of great things coming, and it amazes me that we can talk for 2 hours straight about them.
Yeah.
It just goes to show you that the industry is doing real well. Attendance numbers are up, revenue is up, the big parks are doing great. I mean, Disney and Universal are at each other's throats, which is only great for fans like us.
Yeah.
The small parks are doing great. The medium-sized parks are doing great. Everybody's got new stuff coming. It's a wonderful time to be writing about the industry as I do and talking about it as you guys do, and a great time for fans to go to parks. And like you said at the top of the show, Mike, this really kind of marks a turning point for me. It's kind of like Groundhog Day, you know. For me, it's like spring is really maybe just around the corner now that we're actually talking about what's coming, and I can really say that I'm looking forward to the spring and to parks opening up and to all this great stuff that we're going to get to try out this year.
Yeah.
If anybody's dropping in on coasterradio.com, just randomly finding this episode, you need to go back one episode and listen to that, because this is a two-parter. We already went through a big, long list of new attractions coming out in 2018 this week. We're going to be going through the rest of that list. And Mike, I'm looking ahead at, I think this week's got a better list.
Oh,
there's some really good stuff coming up on this week's episode. This is good.
Yeah, maybe
there was some pretty cool stuff last week too.
Yeah,
there were definitely some cool stuff like we talked about last weekend and this week. 2018 is going to be a pretty good year, I feel like, for everybody.
Yeah.
Especially for roller coasters.
And definitely. For roller coasters, for sure.
Yeah. Definitely much more than 2017 was. So I think that's what's pretty exciting.
Well, that's at the top of our list right here, Mike, isn't it?
Yeah. Any time that Cedar Point does anything, I mean, they put in like a flat ride or something, it makes news around the world. But this ride has got people salivating. I know that Kevin and John up in Cincinnati, they cannot wait to represent Coaster Radio when they go to Cedar Point for the unveiling of Steel Vengeance. The largest.
I'm one of those guys drooling as well, Mike.
It looks great, right? When they released that point of view video, I mean, it was hard to find anything wrong with this roller coaster and what
those
RMC is planning.
Gunslingers?
Yeah, you know?
Did you forget about them?
Oh, I forgot about them. But I'm talking about I can find something wrong with them, but the point of view video itself looks pretty close to perfect, in my opinion.
Well, I said this last week. RMC just can seem to do no wrong when it comes to these hybrid wooden steel coasters. When they take these old, past their prime wooden coasters, give them the iBox track, steel track, and they're just reborn like the phoenix from the ashes. When it comes to roller coasters that are past their prime and beat you up, it doesn't get much worse than and I just lost the name of the coaster. Sorry,
Mean
guys.
Street. Oh, Mean Street.
Mean Street. Yeah,
we'll pick it up.
Sure.
When it comes to coasters that beat you up and are past their prime, it doesn't really get much worse than Mean Street at Cedar Point. People have been bitching and moaning about that ride for years.
Yeah.
And oh my goodness, what RMC is doing to this ride with Steel Vengeance just looks phenomenal. And not only do they take out the wooden track, replace it with their iBox steel track, but they retrack and reprofile the layout of the ride. They're going to make this a 200-foot tall ride, and they're going to be including some inversions in it, which is kind of an RMC hallmark. It sounds crazy to have inversions on a wooden coaster, but they've proven that they can do it. And everything about this just has me, my eyes are popping out of my head. Yeah. 4 inversions, 200-foot drop, 74 miles an hour. And that first drop is 90 degrees. We talked about this last week. It seems like almost every new ride, every new coaster this year is at least 90 degrees, if not greater. Yeah. And Steel Vengeance is another one. This one has the coaster world going crazy, and I'm going crazy right along with them.
Yeah. The thing that I loved about Mean Streak, I think the only things really, was that the structure itself was beautiful. You know, it was one of those things that you could just walk up to, and it was just massive. And I like that pretty much stays intact, and just the ride itself becomes so much better. So I'm looking forward to it. I'm glad that iconic, big, gigantic structure is still there.
Well, and you spend a lot of time inside of it with this new tracking and the new profile. It's going to be really, really fun.
Yeah, so I'm excited.
Of course, we won't know until we actually get on it, but I think this has the potential to be the best coaster at Cedar Point, which is saying a lot.
Oh, yeah.
And to date, my favorite RMC conversion has been Twisted Colossus at Six Flags Magic Mountain. I'm just in awe of that ride. And I was sort of comparing and contrasting the two. There are many things that are different about it, but there are many things that are similar about it. One thing that almost all the RMC rides have is a zero-G stall, which is a great element where the train turns upside down and kind of stays upside down for a few seconds before it turns back up. They're calling it a twisted snake dive on this one. They come up with these crazy names, but it's a zero-G stall.
Yeah.
And it just should be a great ride.
Yeah. Well, one interesting thing that I've heard a couple times from Coaster Radio listeners, they've emailed in or maybe put something up on Reddit. The one thing they're a little worried about with this particular roller coaster is the brake run, or the mid-course brake. And they're worried about how much the trains will actually slow down on that mid-course brake because it will greatly affect the second half of the ride. So if the brakes hardly catch the train, you're going to have a wild ride on the way back. But if they do slow it down a lot, I think it will change what we saw in the POV. So we won't know it all until they open it up and let the thing roll. But that's the one thing I'm hearing from, really in-depth coaster boys who are kind of worried a little bit. That's the one thing. But I don't know. I like you said, Arthur, there hasn't been an RMC that has completely disappointed anyone, so we'll see.
No, they really can seem to almost do no wrong. And even if the second half of the ride is a bit slower than Coaster Boys would like, remember the first half of the ride has that 200-foot, 90-degree drop at 74 miles an hour. So for crying out loud.
Yeah, exactly. You mentioned, Arthur, at the top of the show how Disney and Universal are kind of going at each other in terms of just, one-upping and new attractions and all of that. Universal Studios Florida this year is going to unveil Fast and Furious Supercharged.
Yeah, and I've been on the Universal Studios Hollywood version of this, which is part of their studio tram tour. The finale of the tour takes you into a show building, and you have this Fast and Furious Supercharged experience. It's going to be very similar, but it will be a standalone ride, kind of like what they did with King Kong, both in Hollywood and Florida. In Hollywood, it's part of the tram tour. In Florida, it is a standalone ride. The funny thing is, Fast and Furious Supercharged came after King Kong in Hollywood, and it's sort of the next generation of the immersion tunnel concept. And there are many things that are better about it in terms of the size of the screen and the scope of the film, and I think the frame rate and the resolution is better. But for all that, I still like the King Kong experience better. So I'm not quite sure what will change with the Florida version of it. I did speak with Thierry Koo, who is from Universal Creative. He's saying that this ride experience in Florida will be longer. It will have technically it'll be better. It will be just sharper, brighter projectors,
nice,
a higher frame rate, higher resolution. So maybe that will help the experience. And in addition to the ride experience itself, they're going to have actual cars from the films on display that guests will be able to see, I think, as they go through the queue and
nice,
during the pre-show. So it sounds like a really neat ride.
Yeah. Speaking of Disney, over at California Adventure in Anaheim, they're going to debut Pixar Pier, which is basically changing over and kind of adding a new theme to Paradise Pier, adding a lot of Pixar characters, and I think the thing that is the biggest change is the big gigantic roller coaster, California Screaming, turning into the Incredicoaster. And some people a little upset about it.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of this. I kind of hear resignation in your voice too, EB. I thought that when Disney changed over the Disney California Adventure a few years ago, and they added Buena Vista Street and kind of changed the overall theme to when Walt first arrived with his dreams to Hollywood, the 1920s version of California. I thought that was great. And Paradise Pier fit right into that. You've got this lovely Victorian era California seaside park theming. I thought it all worked well within the context of the entire park, and to rip all that out and to drop in this synergistic Pixar theming with these different Pixar neighborhoods. Apparently, they're going to have Inside Out, and The Incredibles will be represented. I don't know. It just strikes me as kind of maybe a bit more of a decision from the corporate bean counters looking at synergy than from the the true Imagineers who are looking at the the gestalt of the entire park and how everything fits together and plays together. They're also adding Marvel there too, but it all feels a little shoehorned and it just doesn't feel right. It almost seems like there should be a separate, maybe third park with Marvel and Pixar, or maybe two separate parks, one with Marvel and one with Pixar. That might make a little more sense.
No, I don't think fans would complain about that.
No, I don't think they would at all. So I'm a little down on this, but again, I'm going to withhold my reservations entirely until I actually get to see it. But I am a little concerned about it.
Yeah. The one thing I'm glad about, I love California Screamin'. I'm glad the ride itself is not going away or changing, because that's one of my favorite Disney roller coasters. It's so long. Like, you're on that ride forever, it seems, and I love that ride. So I'm glad that at least from a pure roller coaster experience, that isn't changing. So
it's one of the longest roller coasters in the world. Actually, I think our buddy Neil Patrick Harris may lose his cameo in that, which is a shame.
That's true. Yeah, because he always was the voice of the launch, and I think that's going to go away. So he'll have to talk his way into getting into some other ride, I think, which could be fun.
Does he have a voice in some Pixar movie sometime? Maybe that's how he does it. I don't know.
Interesting. Yeah, that's an interesting question. Yeah, maybe.
He was the monkey in Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs. That's not Pixar, though.
Yeah, there you go.
I think he's also in the Smurfs movie, but we don't want to talk about that.
There you go. Up in Canada's Wonderland in Ontario, they've got 2 new rides coming up. They've got an expanded play and splash area for children. But the ride we want to talk about is Lumberjack. It's kind of a 75-foot double swinging axe pendulum type thing. I guess, EB, we've seen this ride before, right? At some other parks.
This is the Kennywood Arrow 360. That's what this is. Yeah. Except this one's going to, instead of being a big old Kennywood Arrow, it's a giant axes, 2 axes.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool.
And as we talked about last week, parks need the flat rides. So not every park is going to put in a roller coaster every year. Sometimes you get these kind of cool attractions that aren't big dark rides or big roller coasters, but a needed addition to a park.
This is a thrilling ride, and it's a good addition.
Yeah, and the giant swings, the giant pendulum rides are great. They really are thrilling, and they have some serious airtime. So Coaster Boys shouldn't turn up their nose at some of these flat rides, especially these ones that this one's going to go 75 feet, and I think it's going to give you some pretty good air.
Definitely. Legoland in California is opening the Lego City Deep Sea Adventure Submarine Ride. 12 passengers inside one of these subs. 8 real submarines, actually, is what they've got out there, exploring an imaginative underwater world.
This looks so cool. It looks like something that should be at SeaWorld, doesn't it?
Right. Yeah, I'm surprised.
Yes. Yeah. And they're not really real submarines, right? Because the top of them stays out of the water. You just feel like you're all the way underwater.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's very similar to the Disneyland submarine voyage, where they pretend to go underwater, but they are in fact underwater, but they're not completely submerged.
Yeah.
Right.
What's different about this, though, is that there will be actual fish in there that will be swimming around the subs, mixed in with Lego characters. And I think there's some interactive component where you get to communicate somehow with the Lego divers that are out there, and something happens. So I think it'll be real cute. And again, it looks like something that should be at SeaWorld, but good for Legoland for putting this in.
And I guess this sort of already exists in a couple of the other Legoland parks around the world. It's a Journey to Atlantis sort of a theme at those parks. And there's iPads, I think, or not iPads, but there's touch screens in there. As you're listening to the story coming through over the speakers, there's like scavenger hunt things, or you can make choices or identify things by tapping on the touchpad.
Right.
It's cool. It's cool. And the windows look great. Big windows to be able to look out, not tiny little portholes, which is cool.
Yeah. The only thing about these rides, I don't know if either of you guys are claustrophobic. I am a little bit, But I got a little freaked out on the submarine voyage, and I might get a little freaked out on this. I know when the hatch closes and it dives underwater, I just get a little antsy.
I do remember when I rode that submarine voyage, or it was Nemo when I rode it. It was smaller inside than I thought it was going to be.
Yeah,
it's a lot smaller.
It's close quarters in there, and I've seen people flip out a little bit if the ride takes a little longer to disembark. Like if you're stuck down there for a couple minutes while they're waiting for to push it up into the area. Yeah, people can flip out. So that's a good point. That's a good point. Speaking of SeaWorld, because you're right, a ride like that would work really well at SeaWorld. At SeaWorld San Diego, they are going to open Electric Eel, which is the park's third roller coaster. Essentially, this is just like some of the things that we've seen before. Tempesto at Busch Gardens, Superman Ultimate Flight. It looks like the standard version of that.
Yeah, it is. It's the Skyrocket ride.
Yeah.
And I finally got to ride it at Busch Gardens last year. I've got to say, it's kind of a weird ride. I don't know what you guys think about it, but I found that it was really. I'm not a big guy at all. I'm actually kind of small, but it was a very tight fit in the seats.
Yeah.
So that was strange. And then it's an extremely short ride. And the elements, I don't know. I just felt like it was just a weird, disjointed coaster experience. Where when it was all over, it was one of those, what happened? Reactions what just happened reaction. The whole thing is over in less than a minute. It's great for parks that don't have a lot of space because again, it's got a very small footprint. But I find these Skyrocket rides a little odd.
Yeah, and it's almost some of the transitions are a little violent. It's like as you're going through some of those whip arounds and stuff, it takes you pretty fast. So some people love that type of thing, but it's one of those rides that I don't run back around and ride it right away. I'll ride it once and then walk away, go do a couple other things, maybe come back to it later in the day. So
right, and it's also one of those rides that has fairly low capacity because it only has the one train because it goes backwards and forwards, and you can't have more than one train. So the lines get to be a little long on them too.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Out at Six Flags Magic Mountain, which is another park, EB, that you and I might be at for a Coaster Radio meetup sometime in 2018. They've got Crazanity coming out, which is a big, giant pendulum ride. It's got speeds of 75 miles an hour and swings 172 feet in the air. Pretty good.
Yeah, so this is the one that Six Flags is putting in that isn't themed after a DC Comics character. I guess just based on the location they're putting it in the park, they chose not to. I'm assuming.
Who knows how they come up with their names? Yeah. They're kind of crazy sometimes.
Apparently, this one they just mashed two words together. That's how they came up with this one.
There we go.
We talked about last week at Six Flags New England. They have a very similar ride going in, but this one will be the tallest in the world at 172 feet and 75 miles an hour, as you just said. So this is a major, major, thrilling flat ride. And again, we were saying just a few moments ago that coaster boys shouldn't necessarily walk away from the flat rides, and this is one that they might want to check out. I mean, this is you're talking about real major air on this one.
Definitely. Going to a water park, one of the best water parks in the world is Aquatica at SeaWorld, and they have a new ride called Ray Rush, which is a family raft slide. It's kind of cool. They've got enclosed tubes. At one point, you're in a translucent sphere, and at the end, a big open half-pipe slide that is shaped like a manta ray. So a good addition for them, I think.
Yeah, this is similar to another water park ride that we were talking about, I guess, last week, where they're combining two elements. It looks like that translucent sphere is kind of a mini bowl, not a full-size one, but just a mini one where you kind of swirl around a little bit, and then you end by going up a half-pipe slide. And you were saying, EB, it's great to have these water park rides where they combine elements because often, you wait a real long time, you have to climb 385 stairs, and the ride's over in 26 seconds. So at least these are a little longer, have a couple of elements, and keep you engaged a little longer.
Well, and it's always nice to see a water slide that does something different. Like I've never ridden a water slide that had a clear fishbowl thing. So it's cool to see something different.
And Aquatica is gorgeous. It's just a stunning water park. The SeaWorld's done such a nice job with that one.
Yeah. Right up the road at Islands of Adventure, there is going to be a new castle projection show at the Wizarding World of Harry Potter. And Arthur, we talked about this last week, the amazing things that theme park designers are doing now with projection effects. And I know that they did this out in Hollywood, but now it's going to a similar thing, I guess, debuting in Orlando.
Yeah, it's going to be called the Nighttime Lights of Hogwarts Castle, and it's themed around the 4 houses of Hogwarts School. The Sorting Hat makes an appearance and talks to the crowd. Very well received in Hollywood. It's virtually the identical show that's coming to Florida. I had the opportunity to attend Universal Orlando's Christmas event a few weeks ago, holiday event, and I saw their Christmas castle projection show, which was the first time that they had a projection show at Universal Orlando, and it was very, very well done. And now that they have the infrastructure in place, apparently they're going to be having castle projection shows throughout the year. So this is the first of what may be many. Disney has been doing, of course, projection shows for years. Universal's a little late to the game. What I found great about the holiday show was that, unlike Disney, which tends to be really bright and kind of cacophonous and sort of all over the place, I found the projection show at Universal was much more tightly scripted, sort of elegantly understated, and kind of in sync with the whole aesthetic at the Wizarding World. And I would imagine that it would be the same. It will be the same with this show.
Yeah.
So they're doing such great things now with digital mapping. You know, the projectors just keep getting brighter and crisper, and the resolution gets sharper. And it's amazing, you know, to be standing so far away from this architectural element, but be able to see this, see it come to life with these projections. And Universal really did a great job with the holiday show. I think they're going to do a great job with this one too.
Yeah, I'm excited to see it. At Disney's Hollywood Studios, there's a ton of construction going on, not only for Star Wars Galaxy's Edge, but also Toy Story Land. And we're going to see what that looks like this year. They've got a couple of different attractions. One, a family roller coaster called the Slinky Dog Dash.
Which looks so great.
Yeah, it looks so fun. And then a flying saucer ride called Alien Swirling Saucers. I'm excited for this.
Yeah, the Slinky Dog Dash, there isn't much information about that. We don't have any stats about really anything. My guess is, though, it'll probably very similar to the Seven Dwarfs Mine Coaster over at the Magic Kingdom.
Yep.
That one is a family ride. It goes 35 miles an hour, has I think about a 40-foot drop. I'm imagining that it's going to be similar for this ride. But you're right, it does look very cute. It's themed like Slinky Dog. The train looks like a giant Slinky Dog, and the coils, the cars are within the coils of the Slinky Dog. So and it snakes throughout the entire land. So it's definitely the focus there. Alien Swirling Saucers is a flat ride. I think it's very similar to Mater's Junkyard Jamboree at Disney California Adventure, which is it's kind of hard to explain, but it's so hard to explain, I'm not even going to try, I guess.
Yeah, it's one of those.
They're the little hovercraft thing, right?
No, it sounds like it should be the hovercraft, where they're calling it Alien Swirling Saucers. It's not like Luigi's Flying Tires, which is probably what you're thinking about. That was an epic failure. They were trying to bring back the Disneyland saucers, and it just didn't work. Yeah. This is like the other flat ride at Cars Land at Disney California Adventure, Mater's Junkyard Jamboree, where there were essentially two carousels that kind of intersect, and passengers start out on one side of the ride platform and end up on the other side, and they sort of do a figure eight. And I don't know if I'm doing a very good job describing it, but it's very cute. And I'm sure this will be very cute. Hovering above the entire Alien Swirling Saucers ride will be, the crane that comes down to scoop up the aliens from the Toy Story films. I think it'll be really cute. there's also going to be Woody's Lunchbox, and the whole idea of Toy Story Land is that what's the name of the guy who the boy?
Oh, Andy.
From
Andy.
Andy. I'm sorry. Right. Yep. This is supposed to be Andy's backyard, and he's kind of taken his toys out of his toy box and set up this amusement park. So Woody's Lunchbox will actually be his lunchbox.
Yeah.
We're shrunk down to the size of toys, so we're going to be able to walk up to Woody's Lunchbox and order some fast food. The whole area is being overseen by Kathy Magnum, the same Imagineer who designed Cars Land and did such a great job. So this should be really cute. I know the anticipation is just like an overdrive for Star Wars Galaxy's Edge.
Yeah.
But I think Toy Story Land will really help to shape Disney's Hollywood studios as well.
Yeah. At the top of the show, we talked about big giant RMC coming to Cedar Point and kind of the big retrofit. But at King's Dominion, they're getting a pretty good version as well. The Hurler ride, which has been there for years and years, was suffering from declining attendance. But now they're getting ready to unveil Twisted Timbers, which is going to start off with a 109-foot barrel roll drop. It's going to have 20 airtime moments, 3 inversions, and 3,300 feet of track. So I think that it's just like it's going to do with every other RMC retrofit, it's going to make this probably one of the most popular rides in the park. Maybe second to Volcano, which is, saying something, I think.
Now, I rode Hurler. I know this is kind of your home park, Mike.
Yeah.
And EB, you used to live in that area too. Mm-hmm. I rode Hurler maybe twice, and it was many years ago. I don't remember it having not only any airtime because it had just deteriorated to be a deplorable ride, but I don't remember the track layout having any potential for any airtime. I think. Am I correct in that assumption? It seems to me that RMC is just going to be redesigning the entire track on this.
They're changing a lot of this ride. I feel like
they're using a lot of, because there were some airtime hills originally on Hurler, and it kind of went out into a field and came back. So I think they are making, if I'm correct, and the Coaster Boys will correct me on this, giving a little more airtime on those hills, making them a little taller. Just to get a little bit more. But there were times on Hurler where if you caught it on the right day and sat in the right seat, you did get some good airtime on those hills. I do remember sometimes being shocked, but then you'd go and ride the exact same ride later that day, and there wouldn't be any. So it all just depended on a lot of variables. But I think that, at least from what it's looking like with the point of view videos and the animations, that, they're going to have some good airtime on this new version.
I must have caught it on a bad day.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah.
But that 109-foot barrel roll drop sounds really great. It kind of reminds me a little bit of Hulk at Islands of Adventure, where you do the inversion immediately at the beginning of the ride. And it's going to have 3 loops altogether, 3 inversions altogether. So should be a great ride. We were talking about this before. RMC seems to be, they just can do no wrong. And King's Dominion fans, I think, are in for a big treat with Twisted Timbers.
So true. Before we take a break, let's take a look at 2 parks near EB for what they've got coming up for 2018. Kentucky Kingdom EB, kind of a cool flat ride coming up called Scream Extreme.
Yeah, they're taking out their Enterprise and they're replacing it with essentially a modern sort of an Enterprise ride. It's a Zamperla Endeavor, I think is what it's called. This is a ride that is also at Luna Park at Coney Island, where it's very similar to an Enterprise, but you're sitting in like these single passenger chairs, completely exposed, and the back of your chair is attached to the spinning part of what an Enterprise would be. So it's super, super exciting looking replacement for their old Enterprise. I also wanted to talk about my other home park, which would be Holiday World.
Yeah.
They're getting Tembo Falls, which is a kiddie water slide area and like a mini kiddie wave pool. So they'll have 3 wave pools down at Holiday World now.
The water park at Holiday World is just incredible. If that was a standalone water park, it would be one of the best water parks in the world.
Yeah.
The fact that it's part of Holiday World theme park kind of amazes me. And then they're expanding it yet again. So that I think it's great.
Yeah.
Yeah. So good. So good. So there's a lot of great stuff coming up in 2018. We're only halfway through this week's show, though. We're going to talk about a lot more coming up, including Hershey Park, Universal Studios, SeaWorld, Six Flags Over Texas, Alton Towers. A lot more show to come. It's Mike, EB, and Arthur Levine, and we'll be right back. All right. You guys still good to keep rolling through?
Great. Sure.
All right. Here's part 2. Get here. Okay, here we go. Welcome back, everybody, to the Original Theme Park Podcast. You are listening to CoasterRadio.com. My name is Mike Collins. I am sitting here with EB, and we are so happy to be joined by Arthur Levine as we go through 2018 new attractions that we can all look forward to. And Arthur, I think it's true. Just going through everything that we did last week and everything we've gone through the first half of this week, there's a lot of great stuff to look forward to.
We have an exhaustive list. It's crazy how much new stuff is on its way. And we just briefly mentioned in the last segment about Star Wars Galaxy's Edge. There's so much yet to come.
Yeah.
I mean, we don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves, but it's really an exciting time in the industry. I said this earlier. Things are just humming and on fire. And let's jump into what else is coming around the world to theme parks.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that I love that parks are doing is they're staying open through the holiday season in the winter. And Tivoli Gardens in Copenhagen is introducing Winter in Tivoli. This is a park I want to go to. I mean, I know that Walt Disney visited there as he was kind of, getting ideas for Disneyland. It was one of the parks that he went to. It's Tivoli Gardens' 175th anniversary, and it's going to be great. Kind of a fun little winter park that they're going to open up. At a time where maybe the park wouldn't be open normally. Pretty cool.
Yeah.
I'm with you, Mike. I have never been to Tivoli Gardens. It's definitely on my bucket list. I've got to get there someday. And what a gorgeous looking park. And it's more than just a park. I mean, they have a concert hall. I think they have ballet. They have I think 4-star restaurants. It's really kind of an extraordinary place that I definitely have to get to.
Yeah,
someday.
definitely. On last week's show, we talked about Six Flags America and how their water park at times is more popular than their theme park. And I sometimes notice that when I go to Hershey Park up in Pennsylvania, that their boardwalk water park that's inside the park is jam-packed, during those hot summer days. And I sometimes wonder if more people are in there at those times than are in the regular park. So it's perfect then that they are adding 2 new water rides to the boardwalk. Breaker's Edge Water Coaster, which is going to be great. It seats 4 riders on inline rafts and, does the thing that the water coasters do. Goes through the splash-filled hills, tight turns, all that great stuff. And then they've got something called the White Cap Racer, which is basically, it sounds like a mat ride through tunnels and going through 6 different racing lanes. So it's kind of a racing ride where you get to race your friends as you go through. So 2 really cool additions to the boardwalk at Hershey Park.
Apparently, the White Cap Racer is the longest mat racing water slide in the world.
Whoa.
So
yeah. I was
so
just watching the video for this one, and I was surprised at how long it was. I was also surprised that for a racing water slide, I love racing water slides. Just the competitive nature of, taking a water slide and adding something to it and racing. So much of it's inside a tube, so you can't see the people you're racing. You're like in a tube at the beginning. There's like a small middle section where you can kind of, I guess, see everybody, but then you go right back into a tube again until the end. I was surprised by that.
Yeah,
that is kind of weird. I agree. The Breaker's Edge water coaster looks very similar to the Krakatoa aqua coaster at Volcano Bay at Universal Orlando.
Yeah.
It uses, unlike most water coasters, which use water pressure to propel the rafts uphill, this one uses hydromagnetic power. And I found the one at Universal to be really, really cool, and just it's kind of a giddy experience to be racing uphill on using this hydromagnetic power. So I think this is going to be a really fun ride. I find it interesting, too, that I don't think Hershey Park calls the boardwalk a water park. But at what point can they no longer deny that it's actually a water park?
That's true.
They have an awful lot of water park rides there now.
Yeah, and it's right there in the middle of it. You can't miss it as you're walking through, you know? I mean, to get back to Lightning Racer, you have to walk all through it, so it's interesting. Out at Legoland in California, they've got the Lego Ninjago 4D show that's coming up. And they have these at a couple other Legolands, don't they?
I don't think that they do. I believe
the first one?
This will be the first one.
Yeah.
What you might be thinking of is they have the Lego Movie 4D.
Ah, that's what I'm thinking of. Yes, yeah.
Yeah, and that is one of the funniest theme park attractions in the world. I recently wrote an article about what I consider to be the funniest park attractions, and the Lego Movie 4D is right up there. Yeah. And so this will be from the same creators. This will play off the Lego Ninjago movie, which came out, I think, this past year. And it looks like it'll probably be equally as funny. And it kind of has this, it's one of those attractions, at least the Lego movie 4D, is one of those attractions that works on two different levels where kids just kind of get into the action and sort of the pratfalls and things like that. But the adults can really get the sly humor and the satire and, kind of that Lego movie vibe that I think a lot of us enjoyed. It carries over into the theme park version, so it should be a good addition to that park.
That's great. At Universal Studios Japan, they are unveiling Final Fantasy XR Ride, which is basically a virtual reality roller coaster based on the Final Fantasy video game franchise. So that could be interesting, depending on if the VR works and stuff.
Right.
But a cool, like just the Final Fantasy graphics and stuff like that might work really well on a ride like this.
Yeah, this is a max spinning coaster. We talked a bit about VR before, VR coasters before.
Yeah.
I think, as I said before, the industry is still struggling to try to figure out how to make this work. Capacity is a big problem with these, as are technical glitches and all kinds of other things. But that hasn't stopped just about everybody from trying, including Universal. So let's see what they do with it.
Mm-hmm. One of my favorite types of rides is a whitewater rafting ride. I love rapids rides and things like that. So I'm excited about what SeaWorld Orlando is coming up with Infinity Falls. It's going to have kind of a lush jungle environment. And they're going to have like what they call Class 4 river rapids. But a really neat part about this is it's got a vertical elevator that takes each raft all the way to the top of a big hill and then drops them down 40 feet into the river below. So I think that's a unique aspect to one of these rides that we haven't seen before.
And one of the cool things about this ride, I think, will be the theming. SeaWorld has always done a nice job with or as of late, anyways, they've done a nice job with theming their rides, and this should be no different.
Yeah.
That 40-foot drop will be the longest in the tallest in the world for a river rapid ride. So that should be kind of cool. And it just strikes me as kind of interesting that instead of watching fish perform or going into an aquarium, passengers are actually going to go into the water themselves for this.
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah, it looks really good. I'm glad to see that a park is still putting in a river rapids ride, that this ride is still something that parks want to put in. And this one looks really good. When you watch the video that SeaWorld put out about this, it does look like the theming, Arthur, like you mentioned. It's going to be really cool because you are going to be going through what hopefully will feel like a river adventure, not just a concrete trough.
Yeah, and of course SeaWorld has had its share of problems. It's no secret. And they're really trying to, I guess, reinvent themselves a bit and taking the focus away from things like their stadium shows and putting it more into attractions like Infinity Falls. And I wish them well. I think SeaWorld is great.
Yeah.
And I hope that this helps them in their turnaround efforts.
Yeah, definitely. Looks really cool. I thought when we visited Carowinds last year for the CoasterRadio.com spring meetup that it was a fascinating park. And the reason I was so fascinated is because as I was there and walking around and seeing all the different attractions, I kind of thought this park is so close to getting to Cedar Point status or Kings Island status, being like one of those major parks that everybody knows and talks about, especially with Fury 325, some of their other rides. That's why it's so interesting that I think they are taking that next step, getting so close to that, because they are debuting Camp Snoopy, which is a hugely expanded kids section. And I think that's one of the things, EB, as you and I walked around, we said that's one of the things the park is missing. It's like a big area with a lot of kids rides, and they're adding in a whole bunch in 2018.
Well, they had Planet Snoopy, and so they had a bunch of Snoopy rides and Snoopy stuff, but it wasn't like Kings Island where you're in the kids section. And so that's really what I feel like they're doing, not only adding a couple of things, but also building in the big play structure, the big the centerpiece of the theming fountain in the middle, but they're going to make everything look and feel like you're in Camp Snoopy. You'll know you're there.
Yeah.
And clearly, Cedar Fair is lavishing a lot of money, a lot of attention on Carowinds. They see this as a park that is ripe for expansion and growth, and it's got a great location and has some great rides already, and I know coaster boys would love to see another major roller coaster go in there, but you have to. I think Cedar Fair understands that they have to cater to the entire audience, and it's important to pay attention to the kiddie rides and the family rides, and so that's why they're doing that. That's why they're doing what they're doing this year.
Yeah, very cool. Last week we talked about Legoland in Florida changing their Project X roller coaster into a virtual reality ride called the Great Lego Race. Actually, the exact same thing is happening at Legoland Deutschland Resort in Germany. It's basically the exact same thing. They're taking their Mack Rides Wild Mouse and turning it into a virtual reality ride. So, if it works in America, I bet it's going to work in Germany as well.
Or won't work.
Or won't.
That's right. I was just going to say, of course, if it doesn't work, it's not going to work in two continents.
There we go. Also, speaking of rides that are kind of cloning, being at two places at once, is at Six Flags Fiesta Texas in San Antonio. They've got Wonder Woman Golden Lasso coaster, which is another one of the single rail roller coasters from RMC. It's basically a mirror version of what we talked about at California's Great America last week.
Yeah, it's going to be pretty much the same as Railblazer. Again, this is one of the highly anticipated coasters for me. I'm very anxious to see what this single rail iBox coasters, what they're going to look like and feel like. I have real high hopes for them. And boy, did Six Flags luck out with the Wonder Woman movie this year, didn't they?
Oh, yeah, definitely. For that theming, it's perfect. That the ride or that the movie was such a huge success. So good for them. That's really cool.
Yeah, and comparing and contrasting Wonder Woman and Railblazer, which one is in the cave? Which one has the cave, the tunnels?
Railblazer.
Railblazer. Yeah. But Wonder Woman is over some water, I think, right? Is what it has going for it.
I think so.
I don't remember that it had water. It has like some, I think, Greek columns or something in the queue. It has sort of minimal theming.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see when fans, the few that get to ride both, the compare and contrast, if the setting really makes that much of a difference for them.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that might be something that true coaster boys can debate, but really it comes down to the coaster experience itself. My guess is that people are going to love this ride. They're going to probably hate the fact that they're going to have to wait a long time to get on it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One of the rides next year that I'm most interested to see how it works and also how it's received by audiences is Busch Gardens Williamsburg. It's a new virtual reality attraction, and it's strictly a virtual reality attraction called Battle for Ire. And essentially what they're going to do is take their old, you might notice the Questor motion simulator, and I think they had something called Europe Through the Air the past couple of years. They're basically going to put people on the motion simulator, but have them wear virtual reality helmets. And they supposedly have a way to do this to where everybody's going to be constantly moving through the attraction. You don't sit down on the motion simulator and then get your glasses. It's all going to happen ahead of time so that people are just constantly moving through so they can keep just the lines moving, and that it's not going to be like a slow loading thing like we see on a lot of roller coasters. So I'm curious, very curious, what this is going to be and how it's going to be received.
Yeah, I'll believe it when I see it. The risk of technical glitches are great on these VR rides. It's not just a matter of having the hardware on your head; it also has to sync up, and I wonder how that process is going to go. From what I understand, like you said, Mike, they're going to be distributing the headsets while you're in the pre-show or in the queue.
Yep.
And then when you get onto the ride, I think it's going to physically link up sort of magnetically, I think that somehow you're going to sort of plug in or whatever it is by having some sort of magnetic connection, which should speed that part of it up. I'm just wondering why they're doing this, though, because to me, a motion simulator attraction is by its very nature, sort of a virtual reality experience, just without the headset.
Yeah.
I mean, it's, you've got this communal screen that everybody looks at. Having said that, I was on a couple of VR motion simulator attractions at IAAPA, one from Zamperla and one from this company called Brogant, and they were kind of cool. The ability to be able to look 360 degrees and kind of have this personal experience makes it more unique than if it was just everybody sitting in front of a screen.
Yeah.
But I'm curious to see what this will look like. Parks have tried VR on coasters. They've tried it on drop rides. They've tried it on spinning rides. Now we're seeing it on motion simulator attractions. And again, everybody's kind of looking for the magic answer of how to solve the VR riddle. And I don't know that this is necessarily the answer, but it'll be interesting to see what they come up with.
Yeah, I have high hopes for this because I feel like they're trying something new, but they're trying it in the right way. They're trying to solve the problems of VR. The fact that you're sitting in seats in a motion simulator, I'm hoping that makes it better than even a roller coaster, in that they know exactly where you're at and your headset is linked to your seat. So I was watching some of the videos that they have a lot of behind the scenes stuff about what's going into this ride and not only the development of the content, but this technology that they're doing. And I guess in the pre-show, you actually get your headset, like the frame, like almost like a helmet that you're going to put on. And so you put on this helmet and you strap it on and make it tight as a part of the story. Then when you go into the simulator room, then you pick up the goggles and they just very quickly snap on the front.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So that's how so there's no adjusting of straps once you're putting on the goggles. And those goggles are connected to your chair, like with a cable. And so that's the idea there, to make you go through quickly. And also the sanitary part of it, because you don't actually have to clean the goggle part. It's just these plastic helmets that everybody has to put on and off.
Yeah, they'll run those through the
fresh every time, right?
Yeah, through the washer there, and that's it. So interesting.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. Yeah. I think, like Arthur said last week, as well as this week, parks are trying, and I think they're going to figure it out, or maybe it'll just come and go because something better will come along. Yeah. I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah. Well, we're winding down here. We've got 3 more to go at Six Flags over Texas. In Arlington, Texas, they are going to debut Harley Quinn Spin Sanity. This is very similar to the Cyborg Spin we talked about last week. Kind of that weird, the gondola ride that kind of goes on a couple axes and stuff, like just a gyroscope looking thing. But I think it's one of those rides that's just so cool when you see it in person. It's going to start freaking people out,
I have a feeling this ride may be more fun to watch than to actually ride.
Maybe it might be, yeah.
Until we actually ride it, who knows?
Yeah.
And again, we were talking about Six Flags' bizarre naming conventions. This has the same name as the Pendulum ride at Six Flags New England.
Yeah.
But they're 2 completely different rides with the same name. Of course, I guess that only matters to park geeks like us.
Exactly. Yeah.
For the people who just go to Six Flags over Texas, that will be their Harley Quinn Spinsanity, and that's all they know, and that's all they care about, I guess. But for a guy like me who writes about the industry for USA Today, it gets really hard to write about these things on a national basis and have these two completely different rides with the same name. But
they're just making all our lives harder. That's all. That's what's happening there. Arthur, EB and I talked about this last week, so it'll be interesting to hear what you think. But at Alton Towers, we finally found out what their secret Weapon 8 is. It's a wooden roller coaster called the Wicker Man. So we talked about it last week, and everybody kind of heard what we thought about it. But what are you thinking about it?
Oh, this looks really cool. This is a GCI coaster with some really cool kind of dock ride effects, I guess.
Yeah.
And apparently... it will have, they're advertising this as wood meets fire, which, doesn't sound like a great prescription for safety, but it'll be a wooden coaster with some really neat fire effects. Now, whether that means actual fire or simulated fire, I don't know. But just from the brief glimpses in the video and the still photos they have, this looks like a really, really cool coaster. And Alton Towers does such a great job. You got to think that this will, in fact, be a really cool coaster.
Yeah, I'm excited for it, too, just to see what they do with the effects and how it all comes together. Should be cool.
Well, and it's a real small coaster, too, which is kind of interesting as far as the height is concerned, because they got to keep their rides low. This thing, it's only 33 feet.
Yeah.
This is really a family coaster, but then it's also burning a human figure in effigy.
They always do some weird stuff there, man. It's so great. Last one on the list, and we've gone through so many rides here. I think we've gone through close to, I don't know. I have to count them all up and see. We've gone through dozens and dozens. But at Blackpool Pleasure Beach, they are going to have is it a Mack dual launch coaster called Icon? Is that what we've got here?
Yep.
Yeah. What does it say here? It's got, it's going to send riders forwards at high speeds at the start of the ride, and then at the second point halfway through, I guess it sends you backwards as well. Wait, does it send you backwards? I'm not.
No, you just keep going. This ride goes on and on and on and on. It seems so long for what this ride is. It looks really cool though, and it looks really fast because it keeps low to the ground after that first hill and then the hill in the middle.
Yeah. Yeah, so it looks really cool. Kind of a good addition for them, especially now that they've lost their wooden wild mouse. So they do get something this season, which is good.
Yeah, and these launch coasters are great. It sounds a little bit like, maybe just a little bit like Full Throttle at Six Flags Magic Mountain, which if you guys have your meet out there, you're going to find that that's one of that park's best coasters. I really like launch coasters, and this looks like it'll be a really cool addition to Blackpool Pleasure Beach. And this is a major ride. It's going to have an 82-foot drop, 50 miles an hour, and as you said, EB, it's going to be really long. So looks like a fun coaster.
Yeah, I'm really excited for it. So yeah, exciting stuff. Not only at that park, but all across the world, right, guys? There's like so much going on. So I think 2018 is going to be a really fantastic year for theme parks.
Yeah, and Arthur, I think you had it right. It's definitely a roller coaster year, I think.
Oh, yeah. There are just a ton of coasters on the way and a ton of really good coasters, including the two that we just mentioned over in the UK. So, yeah, just a fabulous year for roller coasters, a great year to be a roller coaster fan. And man, oh, man, cannot wait for Steel Vengeance. That's the one that's at the top of my list. But there are some great ones. So looking forward to a great year.
Yeah. Arthur, thank you so much for being here. This is just one of our favorite series of shows that we do throughout the year. And before we let you go, tell people where they can find all of the great articles and things that you write, because you're writing throughout the year and checking out attractions all over the world and stuff. Tell us where people can find you.
Well, I'm in a number of different places. I write a lot of freelance articles for a number of different publications and online places as well. But the three main ones where you can find me is at TripSavvy, TripSavvy.com, where I write about theme parks on a regular basis. Used to be about.com. Now it's known as TripSavvy. I'm also writing just about on a weekly basis for USA Today about theme parks. And so you can find me sometimes in the printed newspaper, but always at usatoday.com. And also I am writing a monthly column for Fun World, which is IAPA's trade organization, IAPA. It's their monthly publication, and so I'm writing for them as well, and occasionally writing features for Fun World too. So I love writing about parks. Love having people read my stuff. Love coming on with you guys. You guys are so passionate and so much fun to talk with and to talk about parks. And love listening to you. And it's a real treat for me to actually be on the show and join you.
Oh, thank you
Arthur,
so much.
This has been so much fun. We really thank you for coming on and sharing with us too.
It's nice of you to say that. It's my pleasure, and thank you guys for what you do all year long.
Yeah, it's fun. It's fun to talk about this stuff, right? That's right. These past 2 weeks have been so much fun just to get excited for what's coming up. It's really great.
Yeah,
really
and hopefully this will be the year that we see you at the parks, Arthur.
Oh yeah,
that would be great.
That's got to happen one of these years. I mean, we do these shows all the time, but we gotta meet up in person one of these times.
It should have happened by accident.
I know.
Where did we decide? It's going to be Silver Dollar City, I think.
There we go.
Right?
There we go. Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome to come there. I know the listeners would love that. That'd be great.
Okay.
We'll do this live. I think that'll be fun. So, Arthur, thank you so much. But we also want to thank everybody who's been helping us out at Patreon. EB, there's a video of you at patreon.com/Coaster Radio where you explain all of this stuff.
It's an old video. I got to update that, but the facts are still the same. Patreon.com/Coaster Radio. Go there. You can be a patron of Coaster Radio. It's a tip jar. It's a pay what you want subscription. If you think this show is worth, $1, then you go in there and you pledge $4 to the show every month. So it's a monthly pledge that you're going to make, and there's perks at every different pledge level. We'll mail you stuff in the mail. We'll send you a birthday card. You get access to behind the scenes content, an extra episode of the show, all sorts of cool stuff. So patreon.com/Coaster Radio. We want to thank everybody supporting the show over there, especially those at the $20 level.
Yes, they are Rick Burnley, Coasters Galore on YouTube, Stephen Coriel, Gregory Delaney, Tony DePhillips, Neil Patrick Harris, Marshall the Big EZ Hider, Brian Cosson, Matt from Yorkshire, Dan the T-Shirt Guy Miller, Chris Rankin, David Sakala, and Kevin and Tim Wilson.
And we would like to thank our honorary executive producers, Todd Hout, Slater, and Brian Wackler.
There we go. So, guys, thank you so much for being here. Hope you're excited about 2018 as much as all of us are, and we will see you next week. All right. Great job, guys. That was great.
Yeah, thanks, Arthur.
It's my pleasure.
Two shows.
Thanks for thinking of me. I appreciate it.
Yeah. These are always so much fun to do. So, yeah, thank you so much. And maybe we can figure out a way to get you down to Silver Dollar City for that. I mean, you may be heading down there before because I think right now we're looking at sometime in July for that meetup.
Into July, the 28th.
I think so.
Yeah. I'll probably be going in the spring, so I can write about it when they open it up. So I might not actually see you there, but we've been threatening to do this for years. One of these days we'll actually do it.
Maybe we'll actually meet up at one of the media days somewhere. Like we may end up at the same one somewhere. So that'll be great. Yeah. Well, thank you again for doing this. This is just so great, and we look forward to it every year. So, and I know the listeners do too. It's always like one of our highest downloaded episodes, these two. So so it's
I think
great.
I lost my ranking this past year. I think you mentioned the top shows, and I think I dropped a few notches. But
I can't remember which one it was. It was some weird one that for some reason like crept past and got to number 1. But I think the number 2 and number 3 were the shows that we did like this last year. So I don't remember which one it was though. It was some weird one that we did. So.
Yeah, hey, again, congratulations to you guys on that Haunted Mine Drop. I thought that was so cool. And the recent Neil Patrick Harris episode was a delightful surprise. That was very
cool.
Yeah,
that surprised us too because we had already finished that episode.
Oh, out of the blue.
Yeah, and then he emailed and said, hey, I'm going to be sending you some trip reports. And we thought they'd be like 30 seconds, 45 seconds. But then he recorded 30 minutes worth of stuff, so... Yeah, and he's like, use this if you want. Don't use it. And we're like, oh, are you kidding? We're going to use the whole thing. So, yeah. So
clearly,
nice.
He is both a theme park fan and a Coaster Radio fan. I mean, the fact that he's supporting you guys monetarily as well as...
which I think is so funny, too.
Yeah, I know that's the other thing.
I think it's great.
Because we thought maybe he had just, moved on and was listening to other shows or something like that. But then all that just happened recently. So, yeah, that was real nice.
Well, good for you. That's great.
Yeah.
Cool. Good night, Arthur.
All right. Thank you so much. We'll talk to you later.
Take care.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
All right. Bye-bye. All right. Do you want to record? Do we need to record a...
Yeah.
Okay. Hang on. Let me save this super quick. It's pretty good. Each show is under an hour, so that's good.
Great.
Wonder how many rides we talked about total. I got to count that up tomorrow.
That's a lot.
All right, gang. We will see you guys later. We're going to record our off-topic podcast, so catch you in 2 weeks. Bye-bye.